morning dish.
He's the hardest working man in show business. His band's music takes you into the midnight hours. And when you wake up, his voice is back on your radio alarm clock. How on earth did this happen?
Well, Jeff saw me taking out the trash at the radio station.
And he won another award.
But this one is better.
I'm your boogeyman. That's what I am.
It's the Morning Dish with the 2019 Radio Personality of the Year winner, Stephen Phillips.
You paying attention to this, Packy?
And Murphy's own Sherry Raines.
Yeah, you must have given horseback passes to the right guy, Stephen.
Well, giddy up.
And Packy Smith's Shetland pony is right alongside.
You guys know these demo tapes don't just edit themselves together, right?
Well, all right.
3 cheers for Stephen Phillips.
Y'all need to help Stephen Phillips out over there. Out the door and off the radio.
Here's Stephen Phillips.
All right, folks, we're back with you, and we've got a heavy hitter with us this morning. My Lord wrote Magnum P.I., The Incredible Hulk, and Rockford Files. Reuben Leder, how are you this morning?
I'm well, thank you. How are you, Steve?
We're doing good, man. I want to know all about this. I mean, all this stuff that we've talked about you wrote, I've grown up watching. I mean, you started out with The Incredible Hulk.
Yeah, that was my first mainstream job. I had worked as a crew member. Well, it all goes back to my dad. He was actor and a singer, and then he had a bunch of inner ear operations. He kept getting vertigo and falling through plate glass windows and things like that. So he had to give up his dream of being a singer and actor, and he became a director of very ultra low budget movies like I Dismember Mama. Ape. There was a movie we did in South Korea called Ape in 3D. And so my sisters and I, we worked on them. One of my sisters is way more famous than me. Her name's Mimi Leder. She directed Deep Impact and The Peacemaker.
Oh, wow.
And Pay It Forward. Anyway, so that was sort of our training school. And but my dad was well out of the mainstream, so he didn't have any connections in Hollywood. And so I started writing. He had a friend who was a notable screenwriter, so the guy paid me $1 an hour to type his scripts, and so my piano playing background came in handy there. And so I basically learned how to write and knocked on a lot of doors, tarred a lot of roofs, played piano in bars, and but finally got something read by the people at The Incredible Hulk, and they liked me, and that's how it started.
Wow.
And it was a nice ride while it lasted.
You don't want to make me mad. I can remember that. You don't want to make me mad. That was always.
Yeah, you don't want to make me angry. Yeah. You won't like me when I'm angry.
But then Magnum P.I., I mean, you wrote what? You was on it for a long time. You was like the main writer.
I was on the first 6 years about, and I wrote, my name's on 31 of them, something like that.
Right.
And then I rewrote many others and just kept my name off it. There was a thing called freelance writers then. Right. And their bread and butter was they'd write a couple of scripts a year for different shows, and but their bread and butter was the residuals they'd get. Mm-hmm. So if you stuck your name on it, if you rewrote somebody and it wasn't their fault that it didn't come out right, it was essentially selfish to stick your own name on it because you're getting paid well enough for just doing your job. And I had my fingers in just about most of those shows.
Well, now, when you were doing the writing on Magnum P.I., it was filmed in Hawaii. Did you get to hang out at all in Hawaii?
Oh, my God, yeah.
What a life.
I don't want to get myself in too much trouble, though that's probably, I've already gotten in trouble, so I'm fine. No, I hung out, the crew, there's a lot of Samoans in the crew, and I think I mentioned to you when we talked earlier that my first love was playing baseball. Mm-hmm. And so there was a softball team, and Selleck and I played on that, and we were the only left-handed batters on that team, and they batted us third and fourth, and I thought for a while that well, that's because I'm the writer-producer and he's the star. But the fact was, we played at a park, Kapiolani Park, right on the ocean at Diamond Head. Yeah, I know it sounds tough, but we did. Anyway, the wind always blew off the ocean. So the way the diamond was set up, if you put anything in the air to right field, it would just sail over the palm trees. It'd be a home run. So Selleck and I just uppercut everything, just hit routine fly balls that became home runs. That's why they batted us third and fourth. But yeah, so we hung out. We hung out with. What was really fun was hanging out with the guest cast,
right?
Because we had all sorts of people who wanted to do the show.
Oh yeah,
Frank Sinatra did the show.
Oh yeah,
Harold Burnett. My favorite guy who did the show was Ernest Borgnine from McHale's Navy, I guess. Some people remember him from.
Oh yeah,
and but he was in The Wild Bunch, which is one of my favorite movies that I saw about 15 times. It's maybe the best Western ever made.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a great movie. William Holden. Anyway, they certainly. Well, let me just say there was a Gatling gun involved in the whole Mexican army. It was a terrific movie.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he was, some actors, they got egos and they're a little tough to relate to. But Borgnine was just a absolutely normal human being and one of the nicest guys I've ever worked with. So we'd hang out. So as I said, we'd play ball, but you'd also, they'd also invite you over to their homes on the weekend, and they'd have luau's, and you got to know their kids, and so it wasn't just hanging out with stars; it was hanging out with the crew because you're there shooting 22 episodes, and so you're there in like 8-9 months of the year,
wow,
which wasn't too horrible. And,
no,
yeah.
Now, do you still keep up with
Tom? Just went by.
Do you still keep up with Tom Selleck, any?
Not for the last few years. He's been in New York shooting Blue Bloods, and so we sort of grew out of touch, and I haven't seen him for a couple of years now.
Golly, could you imagine being in Hawaii and then they send you to New York? Man, that'd be like dying and going to hell.
Yeah, well, he probably has ownership in this show.
Right.
So is my guess. I have no idea. I know back in 2009, I think they just finished the first season. His agent called my agent and said, would I be interested in doing that? And there's two reasons I didn't. One, I just had spinal fusion,
right,
and and my back was in bad shape. And the other reason was I was born in New York. I didn't feel like going back. So
been there, done that.
Yeah.
Well, talk about your back surgery and all the surgeries that you've got. You actually got a book out right now, and as the doctor says, you're fixing to the name of the book, Feel a Little Prick, which is always a lie.
Which is what they always say to you before they stick a long needle into you. And, for a lot of medical reasons that I won't bore the audience with, around in my mid-40s, I started having back pain. I didn't have any traumatic kind of accident or incident. And it led to, they put you on sort of a hamster's wheel of physical therapy, trigger point injections, epidural injections, and then kind of laminectomies, which is a minor, like a laser back surgery.
Mm-hmm.
And they always, the mantra they always had was, surgeries it's always our last resort. And so I wound up at that last resort and had a spinal fusion. And then, and so I'm in the waiting room a week later, getting for him to look at my stitches. And I'm looking at all these people in the waiting room, and I'm thinking, and they're talking, I'm on my second one, I'm on my third one, I'm on my fourth one. And the pain, you just won't believe the pain. And I'm going, if that ever happens to me, I'm going to eat a gas pipe. It's just,
Yeah.
Anyway, So, long story short, I've had about 4 spinal fusions. I got more titanium in me than all of India and Kazakhstan and Russia. So it changes your life. And what they don't tell you is once they give you a fusion, that puts pressure on the discs that surround the surgery site. So then those discs go bad. And then it's just like a descent into hell, I guess, where you just keep getting these spinal fusions. So then on top of that, my wife got cancer and was given 3 months to live, and she lasted 26, and she went through her own hamster's wheel, way more serious than what that happened to me with in the world of cancer.
Yeah.
So I didn't really know what to do with any of that after she passed, and my sister sort of kicked me in the butt and said, hey, get back to work, because I was sitting at home not answering the phone, not answering emails. And I did a couple of movies. And then I thought, well, I got to write about this, but if I just wrote it as the truth, as a memoir, it would have been just really like a lot of anger.
Right.
And so I thought, so most of what I've written in my life has been fairly funny.
Right.
You know, the Rockford Files, you know, Magnum had tons of humor in it. And so I thought, well, so I made it funny, and I used all the experiences that happened to me and my wife, and I put them on some other characters, but I made the doctors pay badly for it. So a lot of doctors and especially health insurance people, that's a racket.
Yeah.
And you know, so I made one guy, one villain who was the head of a health insurance conglomerate, you know, try and get through to one of those people, representatives on the phone. So I had my characters tie the guy up, put an IV into him, and say, you know, if you can reach somebody, if you can reach a human being before this thing drips into you and kills you, you know, then they, and so it's got that kind of dark, kind of gory, funny humor in it. But ultimately, because it's real, it's got some move. It moves you at the end. It says something.
Right.
But you know, you're taking your medicine and you're spitting it out because you're laughing really hard. So I've been really happy so far with the reception the book's gotten, and if it ends right here, I'm quite happy. I got to say what I wanted to say, and I got to make a whole lot of people laugh.
Now, if these people that's listening would like to buy this book, read the book, feel a little prick, how would they do that?
Basically, because of COVID, a lot of bookstores are still closed. So basically, the easiest thing to do is go online on Amazon or Barnes and Noble. I know the first print run, they actually sold out, but I think in 2 weeks the paperbacks will be back on Amazon. It's available electronically in Kindle books, and it's on Barnes and Noble. It's on a place called bookshop.org. So anywhere people buy their books online, they can find it.
All right.
You might feel a little prick.
Well, I can't wait. I've got a couple of minutes, and you brought up the Rockford Files. You actually wrote the last movie of the Rockford Files?
I did. Stephen Cannell was a guy I had met. You know, he was an idol of mine. Mm-hmm. And he certainly passed too early. But so he had wanted me to. Oh, and one of the producers of the Rockford Files was a real buddy, and they asked me if I'd write this movie and the last movie, and I had met Mr. Garner a couple of times because I had an office in the same building, and so I'd see him in the hallway and we'd say hello, and I didn't really know him, but he knew my face, and so I wrote the movie, and what was really kind of cool was the case was that there was a school principal played by Hal Linden, who was Barney Miller. If you remember that sitcom.
I remember that.
And Rita Moreno played his wife, and she was in West Side Story, but she was also in the original Rockford Files and won an Emmy twice for playing the same character. So this is her character like 20 years later, and her husband's accused of some stuff that Rockford absolves him of, and CBS, the subject matter was a little rough, and they even though it was pretty funny, and they held it for 2 years, and then when it aired, it was number 5 for the week and got great reviews. But the thing I want to say about Garner is, I told you that Ernest Borgnine was the nicest guy I ever met in show business. Well, I'd have to say Garner's tied. On the first day of shooting, they sent me to his trailer. I knock on it. He had really, really bad. The reason why it was his last one was because he was in physically terrible shape. He had 2 really bad knees that had been cut on a lot, and he barely could stand. And but anyway, he invites me into the trailer, and he drops the script next to me, and I'm waiting for him to go, change this. And he went, I really respect the fact that you wrote a really good story. I know what goes into it, and it's just great. I won't ask you to change a word. And for a writer, that's like, going to heaven. Yeah. And so he was just really great. So in the middle of this really nice speech from him, there's a banging on the trailer door, and it's Rita Moreno. And she comes in, and I'm not sure if I can say this on the radio. Well, let me change it up a little bit.
There you go.
She said, I can't say this stuff. Yeah. Just the opposite of what he said. Yeah. And it turned out that the problem with her was she didn't memorize her lines. Yeah. And her character was this big motor mouth anyway, so she had these big long speeches, and so I realized, being around it as long as I had been, I realized that she just didn't know the lines. So I didn't want to mess up Garner, and so I said, what if I cut the middle of all this stuff out, and we leave the end exactly right, so because he's memorized it, and he knows when to come in because he knows when your last line is. And she thought that was genius. I cut a few lines, and then she was my best friend for about a week. I haven't seen her since. But anyway, yeah, that was my experience on the Rockford Files.
Lord have mercy.
But it was just a pleasure and really an honor to write that. It was one of the best things I ever did.
Well, I'm going to go watch it tonight just to refresh my memory on that. But anyway, Reuben Leder, we appreciate you coming on. And like I said, he's got this new book out, Feel a Little Prick, which is actually a true story. They've changed.
Might feel a little prick, yeah. We've
changed the names to not incriminate the guilty.
That's true. These doctors are real people, but I disguise them well enough so they won't sue me. But I could always sue them back if they tried.
There you go.
But thank you so much, Stephen. It's been a real pleasure.
Hey, I appreciate it. You take care.
You do the same. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you for spending a little time with us. And remember, you can tune in every morning at WJULradio.com at 8 a.m. Eastern. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel and like us on Facebook, The Morning Dish.